They told you that to be a man was to pursue, to kneel before beauty with trembling hope, to carve your soul into shapes that might please her gaze. That longing was noble, that suffering was romantic. But no one warned you that this chase was a slow suicide, dressed in roses. You gave yourself away piece by piece, mistaking devotion for identity. He mocked the polished, the perfumed, the obedient, not because he despised beauty, but because he knew its power to blind. He watched men offer their souls for a glance, a text, a touch. He saw clearly. They did not chase women. They chased their reflection in her eyes, mistaking validation for connection. So ask yourself, when you run after her, are you seeking love? Or are you just running from the terrifying truth that without her, you feel like nothing? If so, then you were never free. And freedom, Diogenes believed, was the only thing worth having. Somewhere between her smile and your silence, you forgot that you were meant to be a sovereign, not a shadow trailing behind perfume. Diogenes of Sinope, the man who lived in a barrel, the ghost who barked at kings, saw through all of it. He lit his lamp at noon, not to mock the sun, but to search for a man. And still he could not find one. See, Diogenes did not hunger for approval. While others prayed to Aphrodite and bled beneath altars of affection, he pissed on their rituals and spat in the face of longing. They called him mad. He called them enslaved. To him, the man who needed nothing could never be broken. You, however, were trained to need. Her laughter became your mirror. Her absence, your collapse. Diogenes found freedom in the dirt. You, in your desperation, decorated your own chains and called it love. But love that requires performance is not love. It is theater, is captivity. Diogenes stripped life bare to reveal its machinery, the soft tyranny of desire, the invisible leash of hope. You think she is the cure? That her smile will silence the ache? That her warmth will finally prove you are enough? But she is not medicine. She is the mirror you've mistaken for salvation. Diogenes saw men blush in the presence of beauty, and he laughed, not out of cruelty but pity. You compliment what you do not admire. You agree when your soul protests. You text like a beggar with a Wi-Fi signal. When Alexander the Great offered him the world, he asked only for the king to step aside. You're blocking my light. That is what a free man sounds like. And you would trade your light for a glimpse of hers. You would shrink just to be held. And still you wonder why she lets go. But what woman clings to a man who cannot stand still? Diogenes barked not at women, but at men who knelt, not to shame them, to awaken them. Because the moment you chase, you become prey, and the woman you worship does not slay you. You slaughter yourself for the illusion of being loved, and all of it. Every gesture, every softened edge, is another nail in the coffin of your masculine sovereignty. Call it effort, Diogenes would call it comedy. Because deep down, you know she doesn't respect what you gave to Isole, not because she's cruel, but because instinct does not bow to sacrifice. It bows to presence. And your presence was the first thing you traded away. The shame is not yours, he said, but nature's. Nature made you susceptible. But society taught you to worship that weakness. When so you chase, not because you love, but because you fear the silence within. You call it passion, but it is panic. Yes. You fear being forgotten more than you fear losing yourself. That is not love. That is dependency in a suit. You've become a strategist of seduction, trimming your truth to fit inside her attention span. Diogenes stood in the sun, unwashed and undistracted. You were taught that longing is noble, that if you hurt enough, wait long enough, sacrifice deep enough, you will be rewarded with love. But Diogenes saw through that theater, saw a marketplace of men performing for scraps of affection, each act a mutilation of truth. You offer your devotion like a shrine, a place for her to worship, to heal, to rest. But she didn't come for worship, she came for presence. And you were too busy bowing. You think your patience is romantic, your silence deep. But what she sees is a man waiting to be chosen, a shadow following the scent of approval. Diogenes spat on that kind of love, not because he hated women, but because he hated lies. And the greatest lie a man tells is the one where he gives everything, hoping it will make him enough. It never does. It never can. Because what she needs is not your sacrifice, it's your center. You craft yourself like a sculpture of borrowed pieces, a tone she might like, a hobby she might praise, a silence she might romanticize. But beneath it all, the man is gone. You've become a resume of desires, a chameleon with no color of his own. And when she finally walks away, you ache not because she left, because the mask no longer works, and without it, you no longer know your own face. She doesn't respect your pain because it was a gift she never asked for. So Diogenes mocked the kings, the priests, the lovers, all who mistook flattery for power. He knew the man who kneels for love forgets how to stand for truth. And you, brother, have forgotten. Scroll, you wait, you fantasize about texts like they're sacred scriptures, and each time she answers, your heart sinks. Not because it's love, but because you've made her the judge of your worth. Diogenes would strip you of that delusion. He would not pat your back, he would bite your leg. Not to hurt, but to wake you up. Because the man who chases is not chasing her. He is chasing a version of himself he abandoned long ago. She was never the prize. That was the illusion. The real treasure was always your fire, the untamed sovereign essence within you that you gave away for a smile. You called it love, but Diogenes called it decay. Watch men turn themselves into offerings, whispering sweet nothings into the void, hoping that devotion would earn them identity. But devotion given blindly is not noble. It is self-erasure with a ribbon on top. You keep carving pieces off your soul and handing them to women who never asked for them, hoping they'll build you a throne. But all you get is silence, and you think the silence is cruelty. No, brother, it's clarity. Diogenes didn't walk barefoot and sleep in a barrel because he lacked options. He did it to show the world that freedom begins where pretense ends. When Alexander the Great offered him the world, he simply said, "Stand out of my sunlight."
Guys.
The energy you've forgotten. You gave your son away to someone who didn't even ask for warmth, and now you wonder why you feel cold, drained, unseen. It's not because she failed you. It's because you failed to guard your flame. She cannot complete you, brother. She can only witness you. If there's anything left to witness, so ask yourself, are you chasing her, or running from the silence where your real self still waits? And you are still performing, still pretending that if you're nice enough, soft enough, agreeable enough, she will finally see you, but she won't. Because what you re-offering ice into you, it is a mirror she didn't ask to look into. The more you mold yourself to her preferences, the less she sees a man, and the more she sees a shadow. Shadows do not seduce, they do not anchor, flicker and vanish when the light shifts. You became that flicker the moment you stopped walking your own path. True masculinity is not loud, does not need to conquer. It does not beg, it stands. And Diogenes stood. What you gave her was never love. It was your reflection, wrapped in longing, begging to be confirmed. You called it loyalty, but Diogenes saw it for what it was. Dependency dressed in ceremony. You offered her your time, your ambition, your essence, not freely, but as currency, hoping she'd return something divine. But that was never her burden to carry. She didn't drop you. She simply unwrapped the offering and found it empty. A man who had not chosen himself, but waited to be chosen. In that hollowness, it wasn't hers, it was yours, revealed. You keep calling it heartbreak, but Diogenes would have barked with laughter. It wasn't heartbreak. It was the collapse of the illusion, the theater of romance crumbling under the weight of truth. It was the man who could walk into solitude like it was sunlight. The man who, when left, did not crumble but returned, not to her, but to himself. He doesn't chase. He doesn't kneel. He doesn't shrink. Because he knows that the one thing more seductive than beauty is freedom. That's what she truly feels when she meets a man who doesn't need her. Not indifference, but gravity. And gravity cannot be faked. It is forged alone. In the fire of your own becoming, she didn't betray you. She simply left the stage. And you stood there, lines still memorized, costumes still clinging, not realizing the play had ended. You thought you were building a temple for love, but what you built was a cage, and each compromise you made was another bar. And the cruelest part, you locked yourself in and handed her the key, hoping she'd worship what you imprisoned. The man Diogenes respected wasn't the one who suffered in silence, waiting for a reply. She didn't leave because you were too much. She left because you forgot who you were. You gave her a man sculpted by fear, sanded down by need, polished for approval. And she could sense it, that the man before her was not solid, but clay, shaped by her moods and softened by her absence. But Diogenes didn't orbit. He barked at kings and pissed on pedestals. He refused the game. He didn't chase beauty. He exposed its illusion. The man who cannot be manipulated by validation, who cannot be bought by warmth or tamed by rejection, that is the man who holds true power, not to control others, but to reclaim himself. And until you become that man, until your soul burns brighter than your need, every love you chase will be a leash, and you will call it destiny. You called it love, but Diogenes would have snarled, "That is not love, that is performance." You learned your lines from movies and myths, believing that suffering was proof of depth, that aching was a badge of devotion. But suffering doesn't sanctify. It exposes. It unmasks the boy hiding behind flowers, begging to be seen. Diogenes walked barefoot through filth, but his soul was clean. You walk in polished shoes, but your spirit is dirtied by pretense. You think love will redeem you, make you whole, fill the silence within. But love built on emptiness only magnifies the void. She didn't break you. She held up a mirror and you shattered. And when she walked away, she didn't carry your worth with her. She revealed that you never held it at all. That's why Diogenes carried a lantern in daylight, searching for a man. Not a male, not a suitor, not a romantic, but a sovereign being who could stand alone, untouched by the games of affection. You were taught to orbit, to become the sun in her sky, to sacrifice, to seduce, to survive on crumbs. You tell yourself you miss her. But what you really miss is the mirror, the reflection that said you mattered. She was never the home. She was the echo chamber for your unspoken ache, the temporary illusion that you were enough. When she vanished, the silence didn't come from her. It came from inside you. That is the man Diogenes was searching for. Not the performer, but the presence. Not the seducer, but the sovereign. The man who stands without applause, who speaks without permission, who loves without dependency. The world will call him arrogant. Women may call him cold, but he is neither. He is simply awake. And once you've tasted that sovereignty, no affection can bribe you, no rejection can break you, because you no longer orbit, you emanate. And Diogenes would say, "Good, sit in it. Let it burn." Because only in that fire does a man separate from the boy. Only in that ache does he realize he was never chasing her. He was chasing the version of himself he abandoned. And now, the only way back is alone. Do you remember what it felt like before you needed to be chosen? Before the world taught you that love was a prize and sacrifice was the cost? Before you deluded yourself to become palatable, agreeable, pleasing? Diogenes didn't dilute. He didn't edit himself for approval. He spat at kings, mocked wealth, and pissed on the rules, not because he hated the world, but because he saw through it. And in that raw clarity, he became untouchable. While you shapeshift for the sake of being loved, he remained unchanged, and that constancy became his crown. You call it loneliness, you called it freedom. So ask yourself now, who are you when no one is watching? When no woman validates you, no audience claps, no lover whispers reassurance. There comes a moment, not loud, not cinematic, but quiet, like a breath finally exhaled, when a man stops running. It's not because he's tired, but because he's done pretending. You stop sculpting your soul to fit into the shape of their desire. You stop mistaking longing for love. The world will mock you. It will call you bitter, damaged, broken. Let it. Let them. Because none of them have seen what you've seen. They haven't stared into the abyss of performance and watched their identity rot inside a costume. But you have. And that's why you walk away now. Not from women, not from love, but from the illusion that you were ever incomplete to begin with. That is your liberation. That is your return. He looks at the trail of ghosts behind him, all the women he bent for, the pride he swallowed, the smiles he faked, and something inside him snaps. It's not in rage, but in release. But he was full of truth, full of defiance, full of a fire that could not be tamed. You were full of hope, and that hope made you a slave. But now finally you understand. The man who stops chasing is not abandoning love. He is reclaiming it, not as a drug, not as an escape, but as a choice. And the first love he chooses is himself. No more altars, no more begging, no more bargains. Do you stand? Bare, unyielding, and in that stand, brother, you become what she never could give you. Whole. Diogenes called that snap freedom. When you no longer seek to be enough in someone else's eyes, you finally see yourself clearly in your own. And in that clarity, there is no desperation, no hunger, no ache, only stillness. So you stop. You stop chasing women who never turned around. Diogenes lived without a cup, without a home, without an audience.